It all started like any normal day at the airport. The hustle of crowds, the beep of scanners, and the usual stern faces of security officers doing their job. But for Alina, a soft-spoken young woman traveling alone for the first time, this day would take a sharp turn into something she never expected. She had always followed the rules, kept to herself, and lived a quiet life until one misunderstanding spiraled out of control. Security stopped her for what they claimed was a random inspection. At first, she complied calmly, unsure why she was being singled out, but things escalated quickly. Whispered conversations, suspicious glances, and tightened protocols turned routine checks into humiliation. Her suitcase was emptied in front of dozens of passengers. When that wasn't enough, they demanded more. The officials insisted on a private check. But as tensions rose and questions remained unanswered, the scene became public and far more intense than it ever should have. All eyes were on her. She stood frozen, caught between fear and disbelief. Just as the situation reached its peak and she turned around as instructed, everything changed. The room fell silent. The officers who had been so aggressive just moments before stared in shock, not at her, but at something on her back. A tattoo, not large, not flashy, but powerful enough to stop the entire room cold. Who was this woman they thought they could intimidate? What secret did that tattoo reveal? And why did their expressions shift from authority to regret in an instant? You're about to uncover the story behind that symbol and why it made even the toughest officers step back. What happens next will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about identity, power, and hidden truths. The silence in the room stretched longer than it should have. Alina could feel every pair of eyes on her, not with judgment now, but with confusion, even fear. One of the guards, the one who had been most vocal, took a step back, his expression stiff. Another officer mumbled something into his radio, voice shaking slightly, as if he had just realized he made a mistake. But Alina stayed quiet. She didn't flinch. She had spent years hiding that tattoo, never expecting it to be seen especially. Not like this. What no one around her knew was that the mark on her back wasn't just ink. It wasn't just a drawing or design. It was a symbol known only in certain circles, connected to a name rarely spoken aloud, a man known not for fame but for power. That tattoo, once given in secret, tied her to someone feared by the same. Systems now questioning her. And though Alina never used that connection, never spoke of it, it had always followed her. She had hoped to leave that part of her past behind, to live quietly, away from the shadows and whispers. But the tattoo was permanent, just like the memory of the day she got it. Now, it seemed the past had found her again, in the most unexpected place. The officers weren't speaking now. They didn't need to. Their faces said it all: shock, recognition, and regret. Passengers began murmuring, trying to figure out what had changed. Some were filming, some looked confused. But Alina kept her gaze steady. She knew the silence wouldn't last. Someone would speak. Someone would make a call. And whatever happened next, she had a feeling this was only the beginning. Because secrets like hers never stay hidden for long. The officer with the radio stepped aside, pretending to check something on his tablet. But his eyes kept drifting back to Alina. The others avoided eye contact altogether. It was as if they weren't sure whether to apologize or disappear, and Alina could feel that something had shifted. They didn't see her as a suspect anymore. Now, they saw her as a threat. Not because of anything she said or did, but because of what she represented. That tattoo wasn't just a marquette, was a warning. Behind her calm expression, Alina's mind was racing. She hadn't heard that name in years. The name behind the tattoo. He was supposed to be out of the picture, locked, away in a world far from hers. But judging by the officers' reactions, he was still very much alive in their memory. And if they recognized the mark, someone else would too. Maybe even someone who had been waiting for her to slip up, to reappear at the same time in a small corner of the airport. A man in a dark suit was watching everything through a monitor. His face remained unreadable, but he zoomed in on the tattoo, then made a call. "She's surfaced," he said. "Prepare for extraction and make sure it's clean." Back in the inspection area, one of the younger officers finally approached Alina. With a forced smile, his voice lower now. "Miss, you're free to go." It was a misunderstanding, but she didn't move. Her instincts told her this wasn't over. She could feel eyes on her more than before. And somewhere in the distance, a familiar tension was creeping in. This wasn't just about airport security anymore. It was about who was coming next. And whether she was ready for them. Alina walked slowly out of the inspection area. Her steps careful, eyes scanning the crowd. The atmosphere felt heavier than before. People stared. Some whispered, but others were too quiet. She could tell who was just curious and who was watching her for a different reason. Her instincts kicked in again, sharpened by years she thought she'd buried. She didn't know who the man on the monitor was, but she knew the pattern when people in suits moved without showing badges. When strangers spoke into hidden earpieces. When the air around her suddenly became too still. She headed for the nearest exit, but something told her not to rush. Any sudden move might trigger what was clearly already in motion. She reached for her phone, but there was no signal, nothing. Jammed, she was being boxed in. Every step she took, she could sense someone following just a little too far back. Someone ahead kept glancing at her reflection in the glass. There was a trap being set. And it wasn't just the airport security anymore. This was something bigger, something deeper. And it had her name on it. She thought of the man behind the tattoo, the one who had sworn to protect her from the world he once ruled. He'd told her if she ever saw fear in people's eyes when they looked at her tattoo, she'd need to run. Not from the law, but from the ones who lived above it. Outside, the sky was turning a dull gray, and the terminal lights flickered slightly. A black SUV rolled up to the curb. No license plate. No driver visible. She knew she had seconds to decide to disappear into the crowd or confront what was coming. But either way, the past had found her. And this time, it wasn't going to let go quietly as the black SUV came to a stop. Alina's heart pounded louder than the airport noise around her. She didn't recognize the vehicle, but something about it felt familiar. The tinted window on the passenger side began to roll down slowly, and for a moment she expected to see a stranger. But it wasn't. It was someone she never thought she'd see again. Darius. Not the man behind the tattoo, but the one who had disappeared years ago after a mission gone wrong. A man she once trusted, then mourned. His face was sharper now, older, but unmistakable. He didn't smile. His voice was cold, controlled. "Get in now. They're not here for you. They're here because of me." Her body froze. The conflict she thought was about her identity, her past, her mark was suddenly deeper, more tangled. The tattoo was a signal, yes, but not the kind she thought. Darius explained in a low voice as she climbed in. "Your tattoo was never just a symbol of loyalty. It was a beacon, a tracker. We thought it was just for safety, but he turned it into something else. He marked you to draw them out." Alina looked at him, stunned. "Who's them?" But he didn't answer. Instead, the SUV peeled off into traffic as two more vehicles slipped behind them. She glanced in the rearview mirror. Armed, coordinated, no sirens. Whoever they weren't law enforcement. Everything she believed, that the tattoo tied her to someone powerful for protection, was falling apart. The real truth was much darker. She wasn't just being hunted because of who she was. She was bait, a moving target in a silent war that had never ended. And now, trapped between two enemies, she didn't know who she could trust, or how far they'd go to keep their secrets buried. The SUVs swerved through the airport exit road, tires screeching as Darius took sharp turns to shake the cars behind them. Alina held on tightly, her mind racing as fast as the engine. Questions filled her head, but one truth had become clear: she had been pulled into a game that started long before she ever knew it existed. Darius spoke quickly between turns. "They're not after you, Alina. They're after what he left behind, and they think you know where it is." She didn't. At least, not consciously. But then it hit her: memories she had pushed away. The trips she took as a child with her mother. The locked room in the old house. The map her father once showed her and told her to forget. She wasn't just a messenger. She had been the message. All along, Darius pulled off the main road, heading into an underground garage of an old factory on the edge of town. "They won't follow us here. This place is off-grid," he said, breathing hard. But even in the dim light, Alina could see fear on his face. Not panic, something deeper. Regret. "I didn't know what he did to you," he said quietly. "I thought I was saving you back then." She didn't respond. Not yet. As they reached the lower level, footsteps echoed behind them. The agents had found a way in. 3 of them, silent, armed, moving with precision. But before they could speak, a sharp, high-frequency tone filled the space. The agents froze, confused, then collapsed, unconscious. Darius stared in disbelief. From the shadows, a woman stepped forward. Not military, not one of the hunters. She was older, composed, and familiar. Alina's breath caught. Mom. The twist wasn't that Alina had been marked. The twist was that she had never been the target. She was the decoy her mother built to protect the real secret, and the woman behind everything had just returned to finish what she started. Alina stood frozen as her mother stepped into the dim light. The woman she thought had died years ago was very much alive, strong, calm, and clearly in control. Darius was speechless, eyes darting between them, trying to understand what was real. Her mother looked at her with quiet pride. "I never meant for you to get this close to the truth, but you were always stronger than I thought." As the unconscious agents lay on the ground, Alina's mother explained everything. The tattoo had never been just a symbol of protection or power. It was part of a failsafe, a way to confuse those looking for her. Years ago, when Alina's father vanished, he left behind a piece of classified intel so dangerous that global networks were still hunting it. But the secret wasn't in a vault or on a hard drive. It was encoded in memories only Alina carried safe. Because even she didn't know they were there. "You were the only person they'd never suspect," her mother said. "You were the only one I could trust." Alina's chest tightened, not with fear anymore, but clarity. Everything her quiet life, her forced inspection at the airport, the silence that fell when they saw her tattoo, it all connected now. She had been hunted not because of what she'd done, but because of what she unknowingly held inside. With the agents neutralized and the real story finally uncovered, Darius made arrangements for them to disappear again, this time together. Alina chose not to run. She didn't want to live in hiding anymore. She wanted to live on her own terms, free from shadows. As they walked out of the old factory, the sky had started to clear. And for the first time in years, Alina felt like she wasn't just surviving, she was finally living.